Hello everyone, this is Aegon of Astora here, and welcome back to Dark Souls 2, Let's Talk Lore. This is episode 7, and off camera, just to update you, I did a couple things. First thing is I traded in the Estus Flash Shard we just picked up in the last episode, at the previous bonfire, and the second thing is, as well as burning the Sublime Bone Dust that I forgot to burn after having picked it up at Sinner's Rise, I believe in episode 4. I also picked up the Ring of Whispers, which we're going to be using in a little bit. The item description for which reads, Ring worn by Roy the Explorer, who is tied to the Rat King Covenant. Roy invades in the pit of Medulla in, how am I not remembering the name of the area? I'm not remembering the name of the area, but, yeah, Roy the Explorer invades there, if you were offline. And apparently, this is his ring, which uses to hear the inner voices of surrounding foes, useful for locating hidden enemies, and perhaps for a few other things as well. I'm only aware of one thing that it's useful for, but we'll leave that for the time being. Yeah, so that's about all that happened off camera. We're going to head to the Shaded Woods. Well, we're in the Shaded Woods technically, but this is the Shaded Woods proper. And I don't fully understand what's going on here. But certainly the enemies that are located here are spirits of some sort, not in the sense that phantoms and dark spirits are spirits, but just they are spirits. And of course I'm playing online, so it'd be difficult for me to tell. I just saw someone in the distance there. It can be difficult to tell the difference between player phantoms, or player ghosts, and the ghosts that are here. So I'm not going to explore the entire area. I generally just go say hello to Vengarl. That's what I'm going to do now. But when you do that, you tend to aggro one of the enemies who's standing near there. But it doesn't seem as though we've done that. So let's go. We're going to grab this fire seed over here, even though we're likely not to use it. And yeah, it looks like we're okay. Though what has happened to me before is I've thought I was safe, talked to Vengarl, and then got backstabbed while doing so. But let's give it a shot. Hello, Vengarl.
Leave me be. I like it quiet. Leave me be. What business have you here, traveller? You may call me Vengarl, if I deserve a name in this sorry state. 'Tis rare to flap these gums. This is pleasant. Long ago, I was hired to defend the kingdom. I remember a long, brutal fight, and then somebody killed me. Or so I thought. I came to and found myself like this. I don't know what explains it, but it's not so bad, really. Now I watch the days go by and gaze at the night sky, thinking of the finer things, far removed from war. I'd grown weary of battle, but did not realize it until now.
So he mentions that he is of course a sellsword, hired to defend the kingdom. He doesn't mention which kingdom, which is interesting given the spot where we'll find his body later on. But I digress for now.
I know not what brings you on this journey, nor will I deign to ask. You may bear a great burden, but don't we all? I prefer to stay my distance. But I want to warn you of something. My body. I see visions. My body, headless, raging without me. My body wielding my sword, a sword forged only to kill. My body will show no mercy. If you see the wretched thing, stay far away. I learn new things every day. Things never learned in battle. And, thanks to you, I've recalled the joy of conversation. If I can help you, if you require something, do speak up.
So we see here again, as I hypothesized about Lucatiel. I hypothesized that Lucatiel learns things from the Chosen Undead from leaving her summon sign in so many places across Drangleic. And here again, we have an NPC mention that they are learning things, and learning things every day. And of course, this doesn't necessarily tie into the game mechanics, but just an interesting thing to note. But in this case, he's not learning from being summoned, but by just talking to the player. And yeah, on that view, and I only just realizing this now, it does make a lot of sense, my idea about Lucatiel learning from the Chosen Undead via summoning, which therefore equipped her to finally overcome the challenge that is her brother, whom she had regarded herself as inferior to her whole life. So we're going to learn the Decapitate gesture, even though we're never going to use it. I'm going to see if he has any other interesting dialogue.
I cannot lie. Sometimes I wonder what's become of the kingdom. I was a hired hand, yes, but we soldiers stared death in the eye together. And for His Highness, I am afraid. But perhaps it's for the best. We knew not what we fought for.
So he mentions His Highness, which likely negates what I was saying earlier about him not specifying which kingdom he was hired by. He could very well be referring with His Highness to the Duke of Seldora, but I very much doubt that, given the title His Highness, which I imagine if you were speaking of the Duke of Seldora, he might say, my lord, or something to that effect. And again, we see here the kind of outsider's common person perspective on the war against the giants, if indeed he is talking about Vendrick with His Highness, that most people didn't know what they were fighting for. They had no idea. And so you have an entire kingdom forced into a lifetime, essentially, of squalor and war and death and misery, and with no clear idea as to why that lifetime, or why they're being forced to live as such.
I was born in Feroza, a land in the distant east. When I was born, we were already mired in prolonged conflict with our neighbours. Eventually, our kingdom fell, and our people scattered. I've been a sellsword ever since. All I ever knew was war, and I can imagine no other way to live. What a fool I was. I am grateful for these peaceful days. But such contentment lies only in the here and now. Why must life be so confounding? Thank you for lending an ear to my ramblings. Here, Take these. I've no use for them.
Why, thank you.
Go along and resume your journey.
See if he has anything interesting here. Nothing really interesting lore-wise there. Oh, this one. The Ring of Soul Protection. Divine ring that watches over one's soul. Created by Ivory Roans, Sage of Lindelt. Interesting that a Ferosan would be carrying an item created by someone from Lindelt. Nothing really for the Great Arrow. And also carrying something created in Melfia. Created in Melfia, a land that flourishes with magic and pyromancy. Though the lightning contained in the urn lacks potency, it is a boon to any inexperienced traveler. Nothing really for the gold pine resin. And for magic barrier, a miracle encasing the body in a magic barrier increased resistance to magic, lightning, fire, and dark. This miracle is said to shield its caster with the Rock's armor and was common amongst the wizard knights of Mira. And so the Rock is likely a reference to Havel the Rock, Bishop Havel from Dark Souls 1. And yeah, very interesting connection. And in particular that I imagine Havel might have been rolling around in his grave to know that his spells were common amongst the wizard knights of Mira. Knowing that Havel was not a fan of wizards or anyone that might be described as such. But the Mira Knights are similar in that they looked down upon magic, but only used it in instances where, similar to Havel, where they really had no choice. They had to have some sort of defense against magic wielders. But that's about it for Venuel.
I will retire to my silence.
We will certainly return and speak with him again later. But speaking of lending an ear to ramblings, as Ben Carl mentioned, I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge a couple of comments. The only two comments, actually, that have been made on the series so far. The first coming from James Lamont on episode 1, who articulated much more clearly what I was trying to say in the first episode while getting over... Oh, there's our first enemy. Let's... Give me a moment, James, before I... so that I can articulate my thoughts properly without fighting someone at the same time. James articulated quite well what I was trying to say with regards to the differences between the intros in Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. James mentioned that the focus of the narrative is a lot narrower in Dark Souls 2, and I agree 100% completely with that assessment. He says Dark Souls 1's intro sets up the idea that the game is about the fate of the world as a whole, whereas Dark Souls 2's sets up the idea that the game is about us, the bearer of the curse. And I think that that is a really good summary of what it was I was trying to get across, and did not necessarily do so in a concise manner. So we just picked up the Chloranthy Ring +1. No interesting lore there. Did I switch? Yes, I did switch. Second comment was from AJ Sin, I believe it's pronounced, from episode 3, who mentioned that they're very much appreciating the lore playthrough. Kindly said that I have a detailed handle on both the gameplay and the mechanics and lore of the Soul series, and that they're learning a lot about both. And I very much appreciate that comment. And as I have mentioned, I've played an obscene number of hours in both Dark Souls 1 and Dark Souls 2. And I have watched an obscene number of Let's Plays. We're going to pick up a Radiant Life gem here. And Yeah, so it's absolutely my pleasure to bring some of that experience to bear on teaching others about some of the things that I didn't quite understand about the Soul series at first, but that once I did, it enriched the story immeasurably and the gameplay experience as well. So we're going to grab a Titanite Chunk and a Petrified Dragon Bone. So that leaves us with we just need 2 Titanite Chunks now to get our weapon to +9, and we already have the slab to get to +10. So we're going to go get, right now, the second of 3 Titanite Chunks that we need. I like to get rid of these. So, Soul of a Brave Warrior. So this is a Brave Warrior's body here, who happened also to be carrying Pharaoh's Lockstone. I tend to take care of these cursed pots for no particular reason, just because I find them extremely annoying. So I guess that would be the reason, but... Crystal Lizards generally jump attacks, best way to deal with them, unless your weapon has an overhead attack, of which this one does not. So we got our second Titanite Chunk, as well as a couple of Titanite Shards and a Bolt Stone. In there is a Dark Scythe, but we're not going to be needing that at all. And we've come to the reason why I went and picked up the Ring of Whispers.
Human, are we? This is no place for you. Be gone. Are you not afraid of me? Humans rarely come here. Those who do turn back when they see me, or make an attempt on my life. But you are different. We once had a master. He created us long, long ago. But he was born with a fatal flaw. He resented those who had what he lacked and became fully mired in hatred. Eventually, he drove himself mad. It was at the peak of this madness that he conjured up we strange creatures.
So it should be abundantly clear to anyone who has played Dark Souls 1 that the master he's talking about shares important characteristics with Seath the Scaleless.
Our master was a tragically lonely soul. Eventually, his solitude eroded his very reason. In the end, he never understood what it was that he truly lacked.
So that part is rather interesting because, as we understand it, Seath did, in fact, recognize what he lacked in very literal terms. He lacked the scales of immortality that his dragon brethren possessed. And so, therefore, he could not live forever. But on a deeper, more metaphorical level, I guess, what he lacked, you could say that, yeah, he achieved immortality in a roundabout way with the crystals in the crystal cave, with the primordial crystal, that is, but clearly he was not happy, and still was searching for something, which led him to go mad. So that's a way that it could be explained, the discrepancy there.
Nobody knows when we were born, or where our master has gone. The only ones who even speak a human tongue are myself and my better half. I wish to ask a favor of you. I want you to kill my betrothed. Once, I always found her at my side. But as time went on, things went awry. She became violent, raging uncontrollably. Eventually, she came after me.
and we have been locked in combat ever since. We seem to be at a standstill. The wounds we exchange are never lethal. I was born of my master's madness. Perhaps this is some curse. I will be sure to assist you in return. The past is a distant fog. My name was Tark. That is all that I remember.
So, his name being Tark has led some to speculate that perhaps this is over successive cycles as and this is perhaps a deeper point that requires a more in-depth explanation, but I will hazard a incomplete explanation for now in the interest of brevity, and that is over the course of many cycles, as it would be in, say, an evolutionary simulation, a simulation of evolution by natural selection, things eventually change randomly. And in this case, you could perhaps... Where is this curse pot? It's on the other side of the wall, isn't it? Hey, fellas. In this case, you could perhaps argue that... I'm gonna get cursed. Tonight. In this case, you could very well argue that over the course of many simulations, or sorry, over the course of many cycles, that perhaps Iron Tarkus made it all the way to the Duke's Archives. As you may or may not recall, he, in the base game, or in the game of Dark Souls 1, he makes it to Anor Londo, but is incapable of making his way across the cathedral rafters, falls to his death, and therefore is never able to reach the keep in Anor Londo, let alone he's never able to reach the keep, let alone acquire the Lord Vessel and find safe passage through to the Duke's Archives. But you could perhaps argue that over the course of many variations of the cycle, that perhaps he did, somehow found his way into the Duke's Archives and was subjected to experiments. Or, and so since we've spoken to him, we can summon him for the fight. I'm not going to do that, but that is something that you could do. And yeah, so it's plausible in that way, but you could also look at it in the sense of that he's speaking of a master who is a completely different one than Seath, but that nevertheless is under the influence of Seath's soul, which persisted in its existence throughout the kingdom. And yeah, the way that Dark Souls 1 is connected to Dark Souls 2 often leaves these questions rather unclear. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but I will focus on the fight with Tarkus' betrothed before I continue on with that line of thought. So this is probably the best attack she can do for the player because it gives you a couple free hits when she gets her... So you can cut off her, not really quite her stinger, I guess it were, or stingers. But then she no longer does that attack, thus making it a little bit more difficult for the player. It's just going underground. For those of you who are unaware, if you stand on this piece of concrete here, she cannot emerge and then launch into the air. So we lost our buff. was hoping I would stagger her there. And I might be dead. I'm dead. Thought I was hitting X there, but apparently I wasn't. Oh, not bad. Death number 2. Okay. I'm going to try and focus a little bit more and not do commentary as I'm taking out the boss this time. But just as I'm walking towards the boss room, I'll just also mention I'm going to start creating lists of things that I need to talk about, and this is the third of 3 things on the list that I created for this episode, and that is, in the previous episode, in episode 6, I expressed confusion about the link between the monsters created by Aldea, and I mentioned that the monsters created by Aldea had nothing to do with the Chaos, and no connection to the Bed of Chaos and the maggot that controls the same from Dark Souls 1. But of course, that's not entirely true, especially given the revelations of patch 1.1. But we will get into that once we eventually meet and talk to Aldea. Ouch. Let's grab our souls here. And I'm going to be quiet for a couple of minutes, focus on this boss fight. Ouch. So again, I'm playing without sound, so I have to rely very much on visual cues, whereas otherwise you'd be able to rely on the audio here. Okie dokie. So that was Tark's betrothed, and we have fulfilled our promise to him. But I'm not going to go back and speak to him until we get to the next bonfire, so that'll probably be the last thing we do. Or actually, we have a couple things to do. So this episode might run a little bit closer to 40 minutes than they have so far. And this is the Doors of Pharos. I'm going to leave this area until the next episode. That chest right over there is the mimic. A mimic, of course. So now that we've defeated Tark's betrothed, Scorpioness Najka, we're going to warp back and let him know that we've taken care of it. So you'll notice now, underneath our endurance bar, or stamina bar rather, there is a new symbol. To those of you not entirely familiar with patch 1.1 as of yet, it has a cracked blue eye orb with a line through it indicating that we can't be invaded anymore because we've already defeated the boss in this area. So similar to how it was in Dark Souls 1. With the exception of the fact that you can't invade either. You can drop your summon sign, but you can't invade once you've defeated the boss in the area. But you can cancel out either effect at the bonfire.
You've defeated my better half. This is my thanks. Take it.
Why, thank you.
I have no gods to pray to. But still, I pray that your journey will be safe.
So interesting to note that Masterless Glencore, in the third DLC, in the Crown of the Ivory King, he uses the warm-up gesture. It's his idle gesture. When the player's standing there not doing anything, he will eventually use the warm-up gesture, which indicates that Glencore at some point purchased the Ring of Whispers, defeated Scorpionus Nashka, and then returned to speak to Tark, which is very interesting. And that was just returning to AJ Sin's comment from the third episode. You guys, again, you're going to force me to use another human effigy, or you're just going to barge right through. Or you're going to kill me. Not very kind. Alright, let's return to the bonfire one more time. We got one more thing to do before we end this episode. I'm really not a fan of the cursed pots. Quite annoying if you ask me. Probably should have done that before I sat at the bonfire, because now I'm going to have to... Nah, I'll leave the health there, that's fine. I should also remove... Although, not that the life ring provides all that much protection, but... Now that we have a fragrant branch of yore... On petrify this unpleasant fellow over here. Don't believe these guys can be parried. I have tried over and over again. And you get punished for trying as well, because their weapons, of course, have a curse build-up effect. Most effective way I've found of dealing with these guys is with roll backstabs. There we go. So we have acquired the Fang Key. So now we're going to go meet two additional NPCs, neither of which will have a lot of dialogue at this point. So this episode won't run too long, but... And I realize I missed an NPC at the Ruin Fork Road, and the reason for that is that that NPC is going to be privy to, or part of an episode or two I do where I just catch up on things I haven't done. Homing Soul Mask, let's see if there's any lore for that. This spell was said to have been devised by a Master Sorcerer, but his name is long forgotten, and that Master Sorcerer, of course, is Big Hat Logan from Dark Souls 1.
Ah, look how far this undead has wandered. And a very fit undead you are. A bit too alive, but with a darkish shadow. Yet still unprepared for a deeper dark. And like every undead, you have no future. Oh my, don't mind me. I'm just talking amongst myself. But If you find the need for a truer dark, then meet again. We shall.
Strange that he said he's talking amongst himself. Amongst, perhaps, or implying that there's more than one person there.
The dark is still nascent within you. May the dark shine your way.
Indicating perhaps that he somehow divides himself into maybe light and dark parts. There are parts of him, so he was talking with the lighter parts of himself. I'm not sure. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, I don't by any means know everything about the lore. So a lot of this series will be me just exploring the lore, not necessarily showing you guys or telling you guys what to think, but taking you through the thought process that I usually use when trying to figure things out. Just got a Twinkling Titanite there. And we're going to get an Estus Flask Shard in here. Anyone who's played Dark Souls 1 and spent any amount of time in the painted world of Ariamis will likely, like me, have been scared shitless when opening the door and seeing this character who, in Dark Souls 1, was not so... This character model was not so friendly.
Thank you for helping me. I am Onifex. I owe you some form of thanks, but have nothing for you at the moment. If it would not trouble you, could you visit my abode just down the way?
No, it would not trouble me at all. I will see you there. Pick up an Estus Flash Shard. And that'll do it for this episode. In the next episode, we're going to continue on at the Doors of Pharaohs. So I thank you for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next one.